Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the S1E7 episode, and today I'm going to cover one of the most boring leagues in the history of the football, the Serbian Superliga, and not just because the other club and the Partizan Belgrade are going back and forth. Well, actually, they can go back and forth because the great Alhamdulillah protects the other club with by any means necessary. And I'm going to get in a couple of minutes why the other club considers that former president before the main Alhamdulillah was responsible for the victory of Partizan Belgrade. So yesterday, Partizan has beaten TSC 1-0. It was scored by Karabeljev in 44th minute, if I'm not mistaken. And Partizan is currently now first in the Alhamdulillah Super League. For now, before the other club beats another club like 7-0, 5-0, or maybe that magical my favorite where the opposing club, which is one of my favorite traits and lores and tropes in Alhamdullah's NPC league, is when an opposing club, let's say Čukarički or Vojvodina or any other NPC club, so they can score against the other club, Alhamdullah's club, in the 25th minute. Then they lead for the first half. In the second half, then the other club scores in the 65th and in the 76th minute, and no longer do you see the magic, the ongoing magic, where the opposing club fighting the other club suddenly, randomly, no longer can approach the goal and score for 2-2, or God forbid the winning goal. I can't even remember when was the last time that somebody scored against the other club in the finishing moments of the game, when somebody would score 3-2 and Red Star loses against them. But that, I don't think it has ever happened besides Partizan Belgrade beating him in the last minute. So it's currently, as we speak, in the Serbian league, the other club versus Partizan Belgrade is 36-27 when it comes to the titles. And when you win 7 years in a row, and you see the funny difference is they have won the Serbian Super League 7 years in a row, and you can make a comparison and parallel where you see actually quite fluently and quite obviously that the football itself in Sorabendia has not moved an inch, a muscle, a mile, a kilometer, or any measuring for movement or momentum, whatever the fuck. So it's funny how, as much as the other club is getting the polar bear status treatment, God forbid if they lose or make a draw against the other club, it's unforgivable. It's like that's like living or going, depending on your take or context. You go to North Korea and you go to the center of the capital of North Korea and you play K-pop, you're gonna fucking die. So that's the parallel of the crime of the other club. God forbid naturally draws or loses to somebody else, because it's basically impossible. Now the members of the other club are probably going to say, "Oh, when you were supported by Boris Glavic, you were unbeatable." No, that's not the case, because even in the Glavic era, Partizan was able to lose, or except for the 2009-2010 season where Partizan had made the greatest achievement or top in the Serbian Superliga, 24 victories and 6 draws without a defeat. A feat it yet stands to be beaten in today's time. But I think I mentioned in the first video, or I can't remember, but I said that Partizan is eventually going to win the Serbian Superliga, but only when the main Alhamdulillah goes away from the club and the other government scumfuck faggots get the fuck away from the government, and entire story behind it. But point is, so every time I can make a comparison, just I mentioned about Boris Glavic. So the other clubs, or the fanatical jihadists from the other club, they actually consider that Boris Glavic, the former president of the Sorabendia or the NPC Serbia, had some influence, as I mentioned about the influence in one of my previous videos, about some influence where Partizan is going to win all the time and nobody is going to, beat him, whatever. But actually, Red Star did it a couple of times during the Glavic era and some other clubs. I'm not gonna mention 2009 and 2010, but previously in those other eras, yes, it was very fucking possible. The main fundamental reasons between the Glavic era and the Alhamdulillah era lies in the fact that I'll give you a very fun fact for the old football fans. So when in 2010, summer of 2010, when Partizan Belgrade eliminated Anderlecht on the penalties, the club itself had no sponsors. So they were black and white as, the jerseys, the default option. But we had no sponsors, my G. So when I say literally nobody wanted to be a sponsor for the Partizan Belgrade club, and also we had issues with the electricity at the stadium. The bills were very big and huge, and we went back and forth. The club went back and forth with the electricity issues and to be paid, blah blah blah. But to say that Glavic, it was worse under Glavic than under Alhamdulillah is very Monty Python alike, because as I'm pretty sure that nobody has watched the Serbian Superliga like 15 plus years ago. So back then, as a witness, so even back then under Glavic era, so all the clubs aside the other club had played. I think I mentioned in one of my first videos or second. Every time, even in that era of Boris Glavic, all the other clubs played against Partizan as if Partizan Belgrade, the club itself, killed their family members, raped them, butchered them to death in World War II, World War One, Balkan Wars, whichever you want to go in the history, chronological timeline of the Sorabendia history. But when you look at it, so for them it was terrible. And the main reason why the other club was in the 7th or 8th, 9th circle of hell is because they had at the time their own Vucelic and Vazura people in the system back then under Glavic era. And now we had them, but I'll get to those cocksuckers in a couple of brief minutes. But anyway, so when Partizan was winning by blood, sweat, and tears, and yet to this day, the other club is actually thinking, well, gee, guys, you were so privileged at the time with zero sponsors, even though we are the main club. So we were so privileged. My G, that Boris Glavic helped you get Nice to finance you so you can actually get your players. And sorry, I'm just started for a split second. What the fuck? So whoever doesn't believe me thinks I'm bullshitting. Go check in their salaries back in the Glavic era when it comes to players of the other club, and check the people from the club in the Partizan Belgrade, and you can check their salaries, and that has nothing to do with this conspiracy theory of the evil Boris Glavic, or God forbid, the infamous, most dreaded Lovecraftian terror of the other club, Mr. Tole Karadzic. So he was a former president of the Serbian Association of Football, and for the other club, that he was the Ratko Mladic of the infamous. He was the guy that he was always blamed every time the other club would lose in an eternal derby, or they would lose to somebody else. It's always the evil Tole. It's always the evil Karadzic, the mastermind, the puppeteer master behind their defeat. Even though they sucked ass and they had their own sabotages in the club. But fast forward when Glavic disappeared and Toma the Diploma, the grave digger and the brain dead retard who was the president of Sorabendia, which actually shows you that in Sorabendia all you have to be the most hated guy in the country, and the people can be retarded in my country, very much so, going from the history of Cancer Slavia. And you can see that they're going to vote. And the reason the Glavic lost, not because Toma the Diploma, the grave digger, because he bought diploma and he never went to any university in the first place. At the best, he has like 6 grades of elementary school and maybe the high recess, whatever the fuck. But, he always looked like a brain-dead retard that he was, Toma Nikolic, the grave digger dipshit. And then when Alhamdulillah came to power, oh boy, how was that shift in the Serbian football? And when that had transpired, now what the fuck happened? Now all the clubs, all of a sudden, they fucking stopped even trying to beat the other club. You know why? I just mentioned the pattern like 5 minutes ago. So thing is, when they play against them, And I'm just going to say before I explain, there had been some defeats, but not even so upsets, because rarely who can upset the other club from ever beating them, because God forbid, it's like when you play against them in a Sorabendia NPC league of Sorabendia, God forbid, you always have to denounce the 3 points in advance. That's like in Premier League, Liverpool goes against Everton, and Liverpool is like, "Oh God, we just lost 3 points in advance." You know, those type of shenanigans in Premier League doesn't fly, and you're gonna get perma ban, shadow ban, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Only even in the German league, in the Bundesliga, you can say Bayern München, but dude, Bayern München has its system that can just run you over like a steamroller. I remember that grandpa that used to lead Bayern München like a 10 plus years ago, Krebs or something. I apologize for my ignorance. I forgot it. But that grandpa, when he was leading Bayern München, he would just steam the fuck roll out of every club in the Bundesliga. So don't ever take Bayern München lightly, even though they had some crises and stuff. But now, under the guidance of Witz and company, they have beaten Borussia Dortmund 2-1, which is a great treat feature. Congratulations, I support Bayern München. But anyway, just my point is that when it comes to famous derby between Bayern München and Borussia Dortmund plays against Bayern München like they're fucking insane and they hate their guts. Legitimately so, because if I was a, God forbid, fan of Borussia Dortmund, and unfortunately there are some Partizan Belgrade fans who are fan of Borussia, and when you lose the title in the last colo in the 38, and when you lose because being unable to beat some rando club from the mid-tier tier table, and you lose by 1 point, imagine that if that had happened to Partizan Belgrade, a lot of grave diggers will be jumping from Brankov's bridge, a lot of them. But God forbid that ever happens. Ugh. I wish it hopes to the other clubs so they can feel the pain. So anyway, when the Alhamdulillah came to power, sorry for the digression, when Alhamdulillah came to power, now the clubs themselves denounced the 3 points in advance, because here is the favorite magic, the pattern, the reoccurring issue is Alhamdulillah also puts referees in the options of the Serbian Super League to, support the Alhamdulillah's club. And then magically, when they're trying to beat the Alhamdulillah's club, so we call them the other club. The other club magically keeps falling on the grass. It keeps slips by themselves. They keep falling like pine trees randomly. The sun lit the forest. Nobody's there to hear it. And when you even touch them briefly, not even violently or any aggressively, when you touch them just by the tip of your fingers on their shoulders like that, they give the best Oscar performance that you can actually see, and they roll around and they do the Neymar tribute. I don't know why. It's a common thing. But one of my favorite patterns is I've noticed during this 13 plus years ever since the Shidi Alhamdulillah came to power is this. When they play, let's say the opposing club, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they lead 1-0. And then in the 65th minute, the other club scores 1-1. In the 69th minute, they go 2-1 or 70th, however you please, as you like it, as William Shakespeare Turkovic would say. And then from the 70th minute until 95th, 96th, 97th, for those 27 minutes, approaching the other club's goal becomes Twilight Zone with David Lynch, with Soderbergh, with, I don't know, X-Files. It's fucking impossible. It becomes a lucid dream where they can actually ever approach the club. So I'll give an example. Vojvodina. Here's a fun fact. Vojvodina has not beaten the younger sister from Belgrade 13 plus years. The last time that was in 2012 or 13. I'm probably mistaking those 2 years, but either way, they have beaten the other club 3-0, and that was the last time. I'll give an example of any other shitty club, the brain tumor of the Serbian league, Radnički Niš, the greatest dipshits of all time, the shitty club, and the radioactive city of Niš, pieces of shit. They have not beaten the other club since 1970. 1970. That's actually the year where the Gravediggers were formed as a fan group. Either way, so if you cannot beat the other club for 55 fucking years, dude, shut the fuck up and don't complain that you wanna win something because it's improbable for you. And because you have a loser mentality and you're from niche, so my condolences in advance. So anyway, when those clubs play against Partizan Belgrade, now we're having a different story. Now it's completely something fucking else. Now they turn into prime Real Madrid, prime Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, City, Getafe. Especially, we have more Getafe clubs in my Super League than in any other, even the original Getafe under current Alhamdulillah of the coach would have difficulties beating any club that plays the similar tactics, because when they play against Partizan Belgrade, it's very simple. They only do one thing: bunker and contra. And if they can do that, fine. If not, they're going. All 10 players are just going to sit in the on their side and just do nothing. Bunker contra, and for past, I've been watching that shit it's the same pattern, it's the same shit. And I would hear the arguments, well, what did you expect? Do I don't know, to attack, because that's the point of football. So playing bunker contra can only get you even more goals to receive, not just to do something about. And usually they want to complain about Partizan Belgrade being the bad guy, when then their coaches, the only greatest accomplishments they have in their history, in their CVs, is they played a draw against Partizan Belgrade, either on their own field or, unfortunately, sometimes it can happen on JNA. And if you want to consider that to be your greatest trope in your CV as a coach, dude, I'll give you an advice. Buy rakia and vinyak, 2 liters each, drink them all, bottoms up, have a shotgun, put the patrons in, load it up, put it in your mouth, and fucking blow your brains out if that is your greatest achievement. I'm not bushing, I'm telling you for real. But when you play against the other club, now it's the complete other shittery, as I mentioned. So what they tend to do is they give up in the first 30 seconds. Now they're going to say they have a bigger budget. So fucking what? I mean, you can watch in the Premier League. Burnley plays the same against Everton, the same way they play against Manchester City or Chelsea in the upper top tier. And they beaten Nottingham Forest 3-0. And the Greek fat guy got upset so much because Postecoglou didn't bring him McDonald's fries and he got sacked. Proper Chelsea all the way. Fuck Nottingham. And fuck everybody in Premier League against Chelsea. So there is the similarity and the pattern between Chelsea and Partizan Belgrade. Everybody goes apeshit against us. But when they play against the other clubs, then it's, you hear the birds chirping, the elderly people reading magazines, papers, books, anything of that nature. So we're just currently trying. Partizan Belgrade is currently first. Thank you, God. And I know this has been a mini rant, but I had to get it off my chest because it's sitting on me. And to finish my video, I'm going to explain who are the cocksuckers of Vucevic and Vazura. So they were appointed in 2016 when the communist piece of shit Vukila was appointed as the CEO, not CEO, but like the director of Partizan Belgrade, and the Vazura hog piece of shit of 300 kilos on Živa Vaga, he was appointed sports director. So now you're probably wondering, why am I so pissed off about them? Dude, to be pissed off is it doesn't exist in the Merriam-Webster dictionary or any Serbian dictionary how much I want them to be in the not in the 9th circle of Dante Alighieri. I want to be the 999th circle of hell for the rest of all their generations combined that have their last name, or anytime they want to change their last name, I want their misery to follow them for all the eternities combined on the concept of planet Earth, and until God comes back with Jesus coming second time and to fucking evaporate all the pieces of shit on Earth. I want for that fate for them to follow them for as long as they exist, for as long as planet Earth exists. I want them similar fate to them, to be fucking evaporated like Sodom and Gomorrah, over and over and over, and never to find any proper peace in any close and distant future, if we can call it like that. So they were responsible for the downfall of Partizan Belgrade because they didn't do anything. They just stole money, stole money, stole money, and refused to give any proper answers to why, what fuck was going on in Partizan Belgrade club. And the blame is also on the fans, because the fans, they would usually write every time after horrible seasons in the Serbian Sorabendia's NPC league. The main excuse in the argument was, gee golly gee, if only somebody could lead us so we can get them away, the evil people, from the soundboard of their fallacies. But nobody wanted, they all wanted to be like Marko Kraljevic or Gavrilo Princip. We always need somebody to lead us. And I think the fans of the Partizan Belgrade kind of had forgotten that in 1903, when Obrenovic and his wife Draga were chopped and pointed, I'm not going to go into details, it's very graphic, but they organized themselves and they fucking killed the king and the queen. So they didn't wait for Marko Kraljevic or Miro Šobilić or Lazar Hrebeljanović or Braća Mrnjačevići to fucking resurrect from Marica River so they can help them kill the king. They did it by themselves. When you organize like the students are by themselves, you're actually going to get results. Marko Kraljic is never going to fucking reappear for the third time in Sorabendia, because Marko Kraljic is fucking dead and he doesn't give a shit. He's in heaven, he's doing his bidding, and even if I was Marko Kraljic, I'm not fucking resurrecting Partizan Belgrade. That is not his job. His job was done centuries and fucking centuries ago. So own up, and we should have done that shit. But no, it's better to wait. So when they were finally removed those fucking cancers from the Partizan Belgrade, they had, imagine this, zero responsibility and accountability. They just disappeared as if they never existed. Now you're probably going to ask why. I have no fucking idea, but if Alhamdulillah had some mercy on them or whatever the fuck, that's on him, but he's going to burn in hell anyway. My point is that when those two people disappeared and they need to return all the fucking money they stole, but that's never going to happen. There was also a sue for them, but gotta ask whenever the fuck that is going to happen. And when they removed and Rasim Ljajic became the CEO and Milka Forcan are doing their best, but when they opened the past and the scars and the PTSD from those cocksuckers that were there, the Hog and the Ustasha, they had made so much shit fuckery that when you combine Manchester United having shit ton of bad luck from the past 12, 13 years is nothing compared to the chaos they have caused with their retarded contracts that have no more sense in the realm of the year they made. When I say contracts for the football players, I mean, it's hard for me. I'm not a lawyer, but imagine if I'm promising you a money for the distant future that's never going to see there and you sign it and then you damage the entire market and the club and blah, blah, blah. But I just want to mention that justice in Sorabendia is kind of like a Quidditch ball from Harry Potter. You can try to catch it, but thank you for coming to this video. Apologies once again for the rant, but I had to get it off my chest, and that's why I opened this fucking YouTube channel. Thank you. It's S1E7. I hope Partizan Belgrade wins the championship, and when they do, the Alhamdulillah's people are going to cry and cry and cry, and we Partizan Belgrade fans are going to get drunk and scream from the joy of heart. Until the S1E8, thank you so much, and once again, apologies for this rant. Christ is King, and until then, go read books, educate, grow, become straight edge, and buck the system. Enjoy, and hope to see you, and have a great weekend, and have a great upcoming amazing week. I know you have to do a job, but hey, keep fighting and believe in yourself. That's most important. And once again, Chelsea and Partizan Belgrade, the future champions. It's about principles. Gavrilo Princip.